good job.
Stop saying good job. It may build your child's confidence. You probably say good job with genuine care. It feels positive, encouraging, and loving. You want your child to feel proud and supported. However, research in developmental psychology suggests that when this phrase is used automatically, it can create an unintended effect over time. Instead of strengthening confidence, it can slowly shift how your child understands success and self-worth. When your child hears good job, the focus often moves away from what they did and toward how you judged it. The praise becomes a signal of approval rather than an invitation to reflect. Over time, your child may begin to believe that feeling successful depends less on their own effort or satisfaction and more on how others respond. The joy of learning, experimenting, and improving can gradually be replaced by a desire to earn a positive reaction. Confidence develops when your child learns to notice their own progress and internal signals. When praise consistently comes as evaluation, it can interrupt this process. Your child may begin to associate pride with permission rather than experience. This shift is subtle and unintentional, but repeated daily, it can shape motivation and self-trust in lasting ways. Understanding this does not mean removing warmth or encouragement. It means becoming more intentional with the words you choose and the habits they create. As this pattern continues, you may start to notice a small but meaningful behavior in your child. After finishing a drawing, solving a puzzle, or completing a simple task, your child may instinctively look up at you. They are not checking their work. They are checking your face. A smile, a nod, or a familiar phrase tells them whether what they did was acceptable. Wanting to share accomplishments with you is healthy and natural. Connection matters. The concern appears when your child waits for an external verdict before feeling anything themselves. When praise consistently arrives as judgment, your child learns that pride is something given by others, not something discovered within. Over time, this habit teaches your child to outsource self-assessment. Instead of asking themselves whether they feel satisfied or proud, they wait to be told how to feel. Their internal voice slowly becomes quieter, while external feedback becomes louder. Developmental research shows that this pattern can weaken self-trust. Your child may hesitate to rely on their own judgment, especially in moments of uncertainty or challenge. As they grow, confidence can become fragile because it depends on reassurance rather than inner belief. To understand why this pattern can become so powerful, it helps to look at what is happening in your child's brain. When your child completes a task and immediately receives praise, their brain releases dopamine, a chemical associated with reward and motivation. Dopamine teaches the brain to repeat whatever led to that reward. Here is the important detail. The brain does not clearly separate the effort or the learning from the approval. It registers approval as the reward. Over time, your child's brain learns that the goal is not mastering a skill or enjoying the process. The goal becomes making an adult smile. This is how extrinsic motivation develops. Your child becomes driven by external reactions rather than internal interest or curiosity. Research shows that when motivation is primarily external, children are more likely to avoid challenges. If failure risks losing approval, then trying something difficult can feel unsafe. Struggle becomes something to escape rather than something to learn from. This is how well-meaning praise can slowly crowd out intrinsic motivation. The intention is encouragement, but the effect can be a reduced willingness to explore, take risks, and persist when learning becomes challenging. When your child learns to associate their worth with approval, the effects can extend far beyond childhood. They may avoid trying out for a team because not making it would feel like failure as a person, not just as an athlete. They might stop raising their hand in class because being wrong feels too risky. These behaviors are not signs of laziness or a lack of ability. They are signs of a motivation system built around protection. Psychologists have consistently found that when children fear losing approval, they tend to choose easier paths. Instead of aiming to grow, they aim to look competent, They focus on avoiding mistakes rather than learning from them. This pattern can quietly follow them into adulthood, influencing the choices they make about school, work, and relationships. When your child is driven by protection instead of curiosity, their potential becomes limited by fear. They may hesitate to take healthy risks or explore new possibilities. Understanding this pattern allows you to respond differently. By shifting how you offer support and feedback, you can help your child move from protecting their image to building real competence and confidence over time. When approval becomes the main source of motivation for your child, their behavior begins to organize around safety rather than growth. Instead of asking themselves what they want to explore or learn, they start asking what will keep them from failing. In this system, failure is no longer just about something not working. It feels like a loss of approval. And losing approval feels emotionally unsafe. As a result, your child may begin to choose easier tasks even when they are capable of more. They might give up quickly when something becomes difficult or avoid new activities altogether. The goal quietly shifts from learning to protecting their image. Research on motivation consistently shows that when external rewards carry emotional weight, mistakes are more likely to lead to avoidance rather than persistence. Over time, this pattern can extend beyond childhood. Your child might skip a sports tryout because not making the team feels too risky. They may stay silent in class to avoid being wrong. Later in life, they could remain in an unfulfilling job because change feels dangerous. What begins as well-meaning praise can slowly shape a lifelong habit of self-doubt and risk avoidance, limiting growth and fulfillment. After you begin to see how approval-based motivation can lead your child to avoid risk, it becomes clear that the solution is not to remove encouragement. Your child still needs warmth, connection, and support from you. What needs to change is not your attention, but how you respond in everyday moments. The key difference is between judging and noticing. When responses sound like evaluation, they tell your child how to feel about themselves. When responses are observational, they help your child notice what they did and how they experienced it. As you shift your language from outcomes to process, your child feels seen without feeling measured. Research shows that this sense of emotional safety is essential for learning and healthy development. You do not need to become distant or neutral. Smiling, celebrating, and showing excitement still matter. The difference is where you place your focus. When you highlight effort, strategy, and persistence, you teach your child that struggle is normal and progress belongs to them. Over time, your child begins to trust their own experience rather than depending on external judgment. Confidence grows not because someone else approved, but because your child learned to recognize and value their own effort and learning. Once you understand the difference between judging and noticing, the next step is learning how to respond differently in real moments with your child. The first practical shift is to replace general praise with specific observation. Instead of automatically saying, "Good job," you can simply describe what you see. For example, rather than evaluating the outcome, you might say that your child stacked the blocks carefully and placed the bigger ones on the bottom so they would not fall. Or when they show you a drawing, you could say that they used several different colors and filled the whole page. When your child puts their shoes away, you might notice that they remembered to place them by the door without being asked. This kind of response communicates attention without judgment. It tells your child that their actions were noticed, not rated. Developmental research shows that when children hear specific descriptions of what they did, they become more aware of their own behavior. They start to understand cause and effect, such as why something worked or did not work. Noticing specifics also supports self-trust. Your child begins to recognize their own effort and strategies, instead of waiting for a label of success. Over time, they learn what works and why it works. This builds competence and confidence that come from understanding their own actions, not from needing praise to feel capable. Once your child begins to notice their own actions through specific observation, the next shift helps deepen that learning. This second strategy is about focusing on effort rather than traits or outcomes. Instead of labeling your child as smart, talented, or successful, you can point to what they actually did to move forward. When you say to your child that they kept trying even when something felt hard, the message changes. Struggle is no longer framed as failure. It becomes part of the process. You might say that you saw them try a different way when the first one did not work, or that they stayed with the problem even when they felt frustrated. These kinds of responses teach children that effort, persistence, and strategy are what lead to growth, not fixed qualities they either have or do not have. Research on motivation and learning shows that when you acknowledge effort, children become more willing to take on challenges. They begin to understand that ability develops through practice. A mistake is no longer proof that they are not good at something. It becomes information they can learn from. Naming effort also builds resilience. When frustration no longer threatens your child's identity, they can tolerate it more easily. You might say that it looked hard, and they kept going, or that their brain was working even when the answer did not come right away. Over time, this helps your child stay engaged longer, try new strategies, and persist, even when success takes time. This is how confidence grows through experience, not labels. After your child learns to notice their actions and value their effort, the final shift completes the cycle. The most powerful change is returning ownership of evaluation to your child. Instead of telling them how you feel about their work, you can ask simple questions that invite reflection. Questions like, how do you feel about what you made? Or which part are you most proud of? Send a clear message. Your child's experience matters. Their perspective is important. This shift gently places the responsibility for judgment back where it belongs. Developmental research shows that when you encourage your child to reflect on their own work, you strengthen their self-awareness and internal motivation. Pride becomes something they feel for themselves, not something they wait for from you. Over time, they learn to trust their own assessment and rely less on external reactions. This approach also breaks the approval-seeking pattern. When your child no longer needs a verdict to feel satisfied, they engage more deeply and authentically. They become freer to explore, experiment, and improve without fear. Returning ownership supports autonomy and builds a stable form of confidence, one that grows from self-trust rather than external validation. As these small shifts come together, you may start to see a bigger picture emerge. Real confidence does not grow from praise or approval. It grows from self-trust. Each time your child notices their own actions, recognizes their effort, and reflects on how they feel, they build an inner foundation that does not depend on your reaction or anyone else's. The way you speak to your child today becomes the voice they carry with them into the future. That voice guides them when you are not there. When they face challenges, uncertainty, or failure, they rely on what they have learned about themselves. If that inner voice is shaped by judgment, they may hesitate or pull back. But if it is shaped by self-awareness and effort, they are far more likely to lean in and try again. When you notice specifics, name, effort, and return ownership, you send a powerful message. Their worth is not tied to performance. Struggle is part of learning. Their perspective matters. Over time, this builds resilience. Your child becomes more willing to explore, to make mistakes, and to persist through difficulty. This kind of confidence is quiet, but strong. It does not need constant reassurance. It grows through experience and reflection. And helping your child develop this internal trust may be one of the most lasting gifts you ever give them.